excited to be talking to so many people all around the world, and we're talking about cognitive neuroscience. Is that sales' best kept secret, we wonder? And then I'm going to lean heavily into the power of positivity, which is the title of my third book. And I ask the question, are you conscious or are you programmed? And I'm going to lean heavily into that now when we move through this. But just a little bit more of an introduction. I have 3 decades global and in the field corporate experience. I've worked with CEOs, CFOs, CIOs, managing partners, managing directors, all the way through to people that started their world in the sales career from school. And I've been bringing the science, the psychology, and the maths to sales since 1990. I'm sure some of you weren't even born yet. And I started figuring out that there were formulas and there was psychology underpinning it. And I've been building my material all these years. I'm the author, as I've said, of 3 books, the latest being The Power of Positivity. I was also identified as a LinkedIn Goodwill Ambassador back in 2017 for the work I'm doing, not only in the sales space and the leadership space, but also within the communities. And a global keynote speaker, obviously, and I'm a British Excellent in Sales Management Awards judge as well. But I back up all my in the field experience, which I think is my unique, with my qualifications, and they are business coaching and neuroscience coaching. Now, all this acumen that I've had on the soft skills in corporate, which is incredibly important, culminated in me creating a show called Healthy Business, which was flighted on CNBC Africa, and I was actually the anchor of that show as well. And it was all about the financial bottom line increasing when you got the human capital right. And I use the word human capital definitively, because if we get the psychology and the people right, and the neuroscience underpinning all of that, your bottom line goes up. We want to mitigate stress, we want to mitigate fear, as our previous speaker was saying, and the more we can manage to do that, the more your bottom line rises. And I'll explain to you now in definitive terms why that happens. So you're going to ask yourself, what is cognitive neuroscience? Essentially, we have experiences and senses and thoughts that go on all day long. Yes, sure, we're aware of those, but they are creating knowledge. And knowledge acquisition is not only getting a textbook and studying, it's learning from your friends, learning from your peers, learning from the songs you're listening to, learning from the TV and movies that you're watching all the time. This information is coming in, learning from people who are stressed, fear-based. These trending news stories, they're all impacting and affecting us far more than we could ever imagine. And we start creating neural connections in our brain, which involve this mental process, and they become our life experience. So it's the study of intelligence, but not intelligence as we used to it from an IQ perspective. It's more of an EQ perspective. It's about behavior and focus, and it does all of these aspects of representing and processing and transforming your life to what it is today. So you need to really be definitively aware of what you're inputting into your brain, how you feel about it, and how that plays out in your life, but specifically in the sales and leadership roles. And cognitive neuroscience is a branch of psychology, and it's a branch of neuroscience which lean into one another. Now, I ask the question, and people wonder what I'm speaking about, are you conscious or are you programmed? Now, the interesting thing is, and I break it down, I do stories in all my events. I do a 5-day event where I run people through all of these dynamics, and I help them to really understand intrinsically how programmed they are, how to unprogram themselves, and how to reprogram themselves for success. So I use gaming, because I've got a 23-year-old son he games, and my little son as well is 10, and they game. And I've learned a lot from their gaming. My oldest son is also a programmer. And I've had a look at all of these dynamics. Now, the gamer is the person sitting managing the game. That is your consciousness. And in the game that you're looking at, that is life. So if you look at that little TV screen represented over there in front of that gamer with his headphones on, that's what your life looks like. No matter what direction you turn in, whether you turn left or right, the game has always got code written for you to be able to experience it. But it's your choice which direction you're going to turn in. So the avatar, who is you in the game, and we've all designed our own avatars for all these social media dynamics, is programmed by the gamer to act in a certain way. So that gamer that's programming you through life is either conscious and awake or fear-based and negative and resisting. So my question to you is, who is your gamer? So if we look a bit deeper into consciousness, consciousness is taking your programmed mind and aligning it with your gut brain or your feeling and meeting yourself halfway. And that's what we want. That's consciousness. That means you can belong in your environment. If you're too much part of the programmed mind, that means that your entire world is going to be living like everybody else, that mass consciousness. If you are only living in your gut brain and you're living with what your feelings are, you may as well be living out in the bush somewhere or out in the field somewhere. And because you're outside of humanity, you want to be in between both of those so that you've got balance in your life. So my big buzzword and takeaway word, balance. Find balance. Balance is really, really critical. Now, the question I have as well here is, do you actually have freedom of choice? You know, we've been told and we've been programmed that we have freedom of choice. Do we? And that's something I want to dig into. So option A of that question would be the gamer is your societal and cultural thinking, which has been programmed into you since birth. And it's societal, so you want to fit in and you don't want to be judged, so you become part of it. And it makes you make pre-programmed decisions, which are based on prescriptions by society. So this is right, this is wrong, behave this way, don't behave that way, which sets you out of alignment because it takes away that gut brain that you know what you should be doing, but you need to behave in this certain way to keep within society. Option B, the gamer, is your conscious mind, making those mindful decisions, the one that you should be making. Chosen mindful outcomes that are making you in alignment with self. That's what we want. Mind, body, and energy. And in my book, I talk about your 3 core bodies. It's your thinking mind, or your programmed mind. It's your physical body, and it's your energy, which underpins your thoughts. And we're going to lean heavily into that today because that's a very, very, very big part of sales. Now, I want to also just introduce you a little bit to neurons. Neurons are super exciting, and we should know so much of this stuff. You know, when we were at school, we should have been taught our who, not necessarily our why, okay? Not our how, and not all that information. We should have been taught who we are. And a big part of who we are our neurons because they define our lives. So we're going to lean a bit more into, are you primal and reactive to life? So just those knee-jerk reactions, not thinking, reacting from a programmed perspective? Or are you conscious, meeting yourself halfway and being proactive? And these are dynamics that are playing out at the moment within the COVID space is people are buying into the concepts of what's happening and they're following a pre-programmed way through. They're missing opportunities that are there, and in chaos there are always opportunities, but only if you have attentional awareness and are able to see them. So we get something called inattentional blindness, which is caused from being in a state of fear because you're in fight, flight, or freeze. You send out debilitating hormones such as cortisol, and those create you to stop seeing the opportunities around you. When you have ocular receptivity or attentional awareness, you go into a conscious and proactive state of mind. Those are the people that are selling at the moment. Those are the ones that are in a state of peace, in a state of wu-wei, as the Taoists say, in a state of, I can do this, I can see the opportunities, I'm calm, and I'm moving forward. So not buying into the program at the moment that's running. So your neurons give you the ability to perceive your surroundings. And if you all close your eyes right now, you'd still perceive the environment that you have. You perceive that you're sitting on a chair or looking at a screen or whatever it is that might be. You're going to be hearing and smelling all the things around you. So your entire nervous system is reliant on what your neurons have depicted your life to be. It recognizes where you are. So as I said, if you close your eyes, you're still recognizing where you are, even though one of your senses have been taken away. It also helps you remember that you've been there before. Now, that can be a dangerous one, and we're going to lean into that specifically. So if you are a really powerful salesperson or a powerful leader and you've fallen over and something has happened and you remember that, let's say, for example, you were salesperson of the year 3 years running and something happened and you were nowhere that following year, the memory of that could be a disabler in the long term. So we just need to look at that. There are 3 takeouts, audience, that I really want you to have. Your capacity to wander, to know where you are, depends on that nervous system, but you need to be in this now moment, and you need to open your mind to the potentials of what it could be. You need to make sure that you're consciously proactive and not primarily reactive. Very, very important takeout. And you must be aware that is perceived danger actual danger? And we're going to lean into that as well in a second. All right, so the question that I pose, are we human artificial intelligence if we are unaware and living in a programmed mind? And I'm sure all of you out there are starting to question, how programmed am I? You're very programmed. And we're going to lean into that in a moment. Are we being mindful? You know, when we start getting news or information or mass conditioning or trends, and we run to the next person and we go, this has happened, that has happened, can you believe it? These are the numbers. How programmed are you? How accurate is that information? Should you be spreading that information? Should it stop with you? So we need to really understand how mindful we're being in those dynamics. Are we still conscious and mindful, questioning and awake if we are human AI? So if you could say, I'm aware of this, I'm questioning everything, I'm holding my space, that's right, this is wrong according to my current environment, am I still human AI? And a resounding no. So if you are just reacting, yes. And if you are conscious, awake, and thinking, it's a big no. And that's what you want to be. You want to be awake and aware. Very, very important. It'll help you make the right decisions. Now, if we look at artificial intelligence, AI, this is what it looks like. You get inputs in, it goes into a transfer section, and you get an activity. Now, my little nerd brain gets excited when I see this, and I found this the other day, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is so exciting. Brain also has AI in it, and it looks like AI. So when information goes into your neurons, exactly the same thing happens. So this is your neuron depicted at the bottom. Input comes in, it goes through your myelin sheath, and then it comes out as an output. Now, we want to see what the differentiating factor is between AI and brain. So what's the same? Receiving information, they don't differ. Both AI and brain receive information. But the differentiating factor comes in if you question the input. So should I pass this along my myelin sheath into the rest of my physiology? Or should I stop it here and realize this is actually not important? This is actually not me. That's freedom of choice. But it can only happen if you're living in the now moment and you are questioning everything. And then obviously outcomes take place. So it communicates it to the target cells. Now, if information comes in that says, oh, things are in a bad way, everything is diabolical and the world is ending and everything is wrong, all that information comes in, you stop it, you've got a choice. Do I send it to the conscious part of my brain and say, you know what, I'm going to question that because there's always opportunity in chaos and I can actually fix this? Or do we just let it go along its path and come out in cortisol production and depression and negativity and panic? Or do we send it down to the fight, flight, or freeze center of the brain where we're still reacting, but we start having inattentional blindness? So there is your freedom of choice. It's right there in your cells of your body for you to make those choices and those decisions. That's where fear can be stopped and can be managed. Right, so now let's have a little bit of a look here. Can we actually change our programming? Yes, we can, right? Just remember, you didn't choose anything in your life. You didn't choose where you were born. You didn't choose the first language you spoke. You didn't even choose your name. None of that stuff came to you. You were just given all of that and you had to react. You didn't get a choice in it. Now's your time to choose. And this is very freeing and it's enabling, and we really need to look at that, okay? We need to stop being part of the moaning masses episode 2020. We've got to stop it. It's got to stop with us. We've got to start being thankful for what we have. And why that needs to happen is when you are thankful, you are using the neurons in the more conscious part of your brain. So the top part of your brain over here, your neocortex and your anterior cingulate and so on, there's your consciousness. When neurons go up there, then what happens is you grow the density in that aspect by being thankful. So all your thoughts start naturally going to that path. If you are constantly thinking in the fight, flight, or freeze amygdala, your negative part of your brain, and I point down here as your I can't part of your brain, what happens is you start creating debilitating thoughts. And those hurt you. And those create inattentional blindness. Now, the brain is incredibly lazy. It doesn't like to work. It will go where the densest part of the brain is. They're like little highways in your brain. It wants to just go on the easiest highway. So by being thankful, by having a gratitude journal, you are actually building neural networks or highways in the conscious part of your brain, which will enable you, which give you attentional awareness or ocular receptivity, which says, opportunity in chaos, I see that, I'm taking this opportunity. And we need to be very aware of that. So my catchphrase is own your now. If you can own your now moment and question everything, you will be set aside from the rest of the moaning masses. Back to our gamer again. So when we look at neurons, remember neurons have got memory and they go, program, if it looks like hot coals, it is hot, don't touch it. Well, is that still true? What if you're enabled this time? What if you're wearing oven gloves and you can actually pick up those hot coals? So metaphor, obviously, but what if it's now affordable, achievable, possible? What if there's opportunities right now that you could have? What if we can change the way we function in this time that becomes an enabler for us? So we need to realize that our past education, and I'm not talking only from education as in scholastic education or university education, I'm also talking about the conversations you've had, the news you've read, the social media, etc., etc. Is that past education serving you? Is it enabling you? Or is it disabling you? So we have freedom of choice. Use it. Choose, am I going to be reactive or proactive? Create that new perspective for yourself. You have the power to do that. And it's all through another programming space. So we want a fresh belief system. And when I talk about the 1%, I'm not talking about people that have billions. Incidentally, the 1% typically end up having billions. I'm talking about the 1% who are deeply and truly happy, at peace, in a good space, functional, going, you know what? Yes, all of this is happening and I'm sending my sincere regrets to people that are going through a hard time. But you know what? There's a way through this. That 1% that finds peace, balance, bliss, those are the people that will make it through this. And what happens to those people is the money comes to them because they start seeing the opportunities. We create our own algorithms within our bodies because it belongs to things like choices and reaction time and eye movement. We look at neuro-linguistic programming. Specifically in sales, we can bring these dynamics in. We can see if people are in a state of fight, flight, or freeze. We can see if they're in a state of flow. Based on their eye movements, they're saying yes, no, maybe all the time. They're thinking, they're remembering. We can use so many of these algorithms that look at human behavior and anticipate human behavior when we are working in an environment. And I teach my teams. I often have a group for 5 days, the same group. I usually keep it down to 25 people. And a lot of the time, my groups are either ADD or ADHD, as much as I really don't like to put anybody into a box. And I keep them focused and I keep them learning. And we learn sometimes 2 or 3 textbooks within 5 days that they never forget because I use these algorithms to help them learn differently. I use the left and the right brain. I use a whole host of processes that people can actually start remembering. They never forget it. So these are dynamics we need to start bringing into our sales teams to teach them how to retain the information and to use it. Consistency is king. So we need to be conscious of the trends that are happening at the moment. We need to be focused. Focus is really important. I've recently built sales plans and business plans for the new normal, and focusing on what is taking us closer to our goals, not further away from our goals, incredibly important. So many people are focusing on aspects at the moment that are taking them further away from their goals. One of the biggest or most wonderful skills that you could have right now is to be nimble and adapting to your different strategies that are happening. Your companies need to come together, break down silos, work as a team, realize that the enemy is outside the company, not inside, and really start working. We could actually learn a lot from ants, working as a fine-oiled machine together in unison. So I make this statement. I say, it's not only what you think, which is really bandied around all over the place. Be aware of your thoughts. Thoughts are real forces. Be conscious of what you're thinking. But it's where in your brain you think it. And I'm going to unpack that for you. Now, things we have to look at is, what are we selling now? Are we still selling the same old hard sell? Or are we selling soft skills? Do people still buy people, even though we've got screens in front of us and we can't actually be in front of people as much as we are? How are those people managing? These are questions we need to put out there. We need to be aware of them. What new skills do we need right now? And I tell you right now, the entire sales landscape has changed. All the old sales training may not be working as effectively as it used to. We need a nimble shift to new sales skills, to a new way forward. How should training be delivered? It has to change. The school methodology doesn't really work because only a small percentage of that classroom actually functions. We are going from the information age, which is largely left brain oriented, to the right brain conceptual age. And most of that classroom full of children works differently now, but that also leans into the dynamic that we have in the work environment. People are different, yet the systems and the training and teaching methodologies haven't changed much. We need to change those. We have entered a new digital era in sales. We've got to learn how to project online. When I learned how to become an anchor on TV, I learned how to project through my screen. We need to learn those skills where you can actually connect with someone. And with all of this digital assessment, with the sales match that we have and all of those dynamics, we can stop guessing. The guesswork is out of sales. We can do full deep dive diagnostics into the sales space to understand exactly who we have, how they operate, and what they're busy doing to enable them to be the best that they can be. And I lean back into, again, introspection. Know your who. Exactly who does your team comprise of? How do they work best from home? What are their skills in sales? To find an all-rounder is completely unusual. We need a sales team comprising of different types of people. Now, I've mentioned this many times, and I know that now it's probably become quite comfortable in the sales space. There are 48 different types of salespeople. That's a fact. There they are. We represented them by animals. Phil Hagen, my partner in the UK, is a psychologist. He created the algorithms around the DISC profiling. Obviously, DISC is universal, and he used that. And I have coached over 15,000 people in this dynamic, teaching each one of the 48 how to open specifically based on their profile, how to prospect, how to close, how to engage, how to work most effectively from home, how to be managed, how to manage. There are so many dynamics. And when we start understanding how different we all are as salespeople, it changes everything, because suddenly targets become far more achievable. Management of salespeople becomes so much more achievable. Using sales tools and all of those dynamics also becomes so much more achievable. We need to understand these people dynamically, and we need to ensure that we are speaking to individuals and not groups. So just to bandy some of the old terminologies, if we look at the 4 different quadrants of the DISC, can sell ice to an Eskimo. That is only your high dominant. It's not the other 3. People buy people. That's only your influencer. Steadiness, patience, loyalty, etc. That's people, buy product, service, systems. That's technical sales. It's not the other guys. And knowledge is potential power. Applied knowledge is power. Speak to your conscious people. Okay, so these dynamics that we look at here are definitive to the different types of salespeople. Yet there's been this one big brush that's gone across, and it should never have. It should be defined specifically. Okay, so does everybody work the same from home? Absolutely not. And we need to understand that from the profiling space, that different people work differently. They need to be enabled differently. And these are the guesswork aspects that can be mitigated now, that we can actually walk away from. Your high dominant works from home in a far different way. They've got confidence and drive. They're self-sufficient. They're self-starters. They're autonomous. In fact, the more autonomy you can give a high dominant in a working from home space, the better they perform. Okay, quick, efficient work focus are your top 3 takeouts for a high dominant. The influencer, communication, interaction, and they get lonely. You've got to make sure as a manager with your high influencer that you are working with that team, that you are helping them, and that you are always with them. And as soon as you can get them back into the office, do so. As soon as you can get them back in front of a client, do so, because they can get depressed quite easily. Words that describe them: enthusiastic. They're pretty good on video, as David Gittimer was saying. So the high I works a lot with video. I would say that Gittimer is definitely video oriented, so therefore he's a high I. And team is very, very important. Then your high S, we look at steady, secure environment, repetitive. They would have taken strain with that complete quick turnover, but the minute they got their system, they didn't want to go back into the office, right? So they want limited risks, clear goals, and they want to have that personal optimization. Then we've got your high C. They love compliance and knowledge and detail, and they'll create their own system that they're going to work to, and it will be very detailed and maybe a little bit slower than the rest of the pack, but they are unhurried. They like things in writing, maybe a little bit too much writing sometimes, and they are time disciplined. Now we talk about ocular receptivity. Where is your focus? Focus is definitely a buzzword I'm giving you to take away from here. You've got to be clear on what you're focusing on. If you're trying to focus on a whole lot of things and you're becoming that person that's literally like that cat chasing that little light, well, you're not going to get anywhere. Clarity, focus, a new sales plan, a new business plan. Life has changed. It's not going to go back to what it was. It has changed. So we've got to be very, very aware of that. Then the question I had there was, what distractions are keeping you from your full potential? Take the time to answer that question. Because if you can figure out what distractions are keeping you from your full potential, you'll be able to get past those really easily and take yourself to the next level. So if we look at the 99% out there, okay, and we're looking at A versus B with the following question: what is your attitude towards work? A, employed, B, retrenched, okay? The 99% say, I always manage to find something to moan about, because they do. But the 1% says, I always find a way through. Then I say, what is your attitude to money? The 99% says, it defines my life and my decisions. I need it before I can live my passion. So it becomes a disabler to move forward. The 1% basically says, it's simply an enabler, and I always have more than enough, and they will take those risks and they will go out there and make it happen. Let that be a defining aspect for you to move forward with, okay? Where is your focus? Is it on A or B? Because if you're focusing on moaning, you're going to get more of it. And if you're focusing on finding a way through, guess what's going to happen? You need to be crystal clear when you wake up in the morning, where you're going, what you're doing, how you're going to achieve it, who you are, what your skill set is, and what's going to enable you to go to the next level. I also ask the question, who are you blaming? Should you be blaming yourself? Are you a victim or are you conscious? Okay, are you worried about things that are happening and really plugging into all of that negativity? In which case, you're going to go to the negative part of the brain, the I can't, because you're going to find a reason why you can't. You're going to have the associated fight, flight, or freeze part of the brain come to the fore. It's going to be having the same reaction as you would to, let's say, if a rabid dog was attacking you, you're going to push away, right? And it disables your hormones, and you're bringing out all these hormones that are hurting your body, and you're pushing away. Or are you going to be the person that's in a place of calm? I always make it through. I always have more than enough. You go into that beautiful conscious part of the brain. It's calmer. I can. Your association is consciousness. You're bringing in all of these enabling hormones. It's a good relationship. You're welcoming life with open arms. And how does that translate into your life? What if money equaled the rabid dog attacking you in your brain? Because your brain doesn't tell the difference between them, right? Your brain will make you push away anything in order to protect you from it, which could even be money, happiness, loving relationships, etc. And then you'd say, why me? Well, it's because you've had all of those negative reactions. And I even found a COVID dollar. Don't push it away from you. Don't be negative. It's hurting you. Enabling hormones welcome in with open arms, help you see opportunities, enables you, and you say, I can, and then you can start doing backstroke in your vault like Scrooge McDuck. Okay, so we need to realize it's very, very, very important. What is going on in your mind? It's not only what you think, it's where in your brain you think it. Are you thinking, I can't, and these are the reasons why? Or are you thinking, I can, and these are the reasons why? So I believe I have 1 minute left, and I'm going to ask Alice if there are any questions before I close off.